Everything seems to be under control. Decisions are made quickly, with precision, no noise. The system does not hesitate. Don't get distracted. You don't feel any pressure. He responds before time becomes a problem. Act when humans are still evaluating possibilities. For a moment, this brings relief. The feeling that there is order, that someone or something is always watching. But every automatic decision carries a silent premise. An idea that never appears in the interface, it never appears in the reports. And some premises only become visible after the decision has already been made. For a long time, complex decisions depended exclusively on people. People observing incomplete signs, interpreting fragmented information, trying to act correctly under constant pressure. This model worked as long as the environment was predictable, while the variables changed slowly, while there was still time to think before acting. But the pace of the world has accelerated. Processes have become more interconnected. One decision began to affect many others almost immediately. The volume of data has grown beyond what anyone can keep up with on a continuous basis. While someone is analyzing one piece of information, another becomes relevant. While comparing scenarios, new risks emerge. Slowness began to be perceived as a vulnerability, hesitation as an operational failure, doubt as something to be eliminated. In this scenario, automation is no longer an optional choice. It came to seem like a logical response to the increasing complexity. The promise was simple and compelling. Reduce the time lag between noticing and acting. Eliminate emotional fluctuations to ensure that similar situations received similar responses. If the rules were clear enough, if the criteria were objective, the result would be consistent. Standardization offered stability, and stability brought confidence. It wasn't about replacing people. The aim was to protect them from the burden of decision-making, to avoid mistakes caused by fatigue, pressure, or lack of time. The system emerged as a support, a filter, a way to make complex decisions manageable. Gradually, trusting the system began to seem safer, rather than depending on human judgment in real time. And this trust grew quietly. No ads, without a clear turning point. At a certain point, a structural choice had to be made. It wasn't a quick decision, not even in isolation. It emerged after careful analysis, testing, and comparisons. If the goal of the system was to respond faster than humans, he could not rely on constant validations. Each additional confirmation introduced a delay, and the delay compromised the main benefit of automation. The proposed solution seemed balanced. Grant operational autonomy within clear limits. Allow the system to proceed on its own when certain conditions were met. These conditions were not vague. They were translated into objective rules, measurable criteria. Parameters defined to reduce divergent interpretations. The logic was straightforward. If all the relevant signs were present, there would be no reason to wait. Human presence would not disappear. She would be relocated. It would then act as a supervisor, observing the overall functioning instead of intervening in every decision. From a design perspective, this reduced inconsistencies. It reduced the chance of error due to pressure or fatigue, and it maintained the speed necessary for the environment. No step was skipped, no precautions were taken. The choices were made based on what was known at that time. Placed in the same context, with the same objectives and restrictions, the decision seemed reasonable. The system was not being released without control. He was being authorized to act, exactly within the space that had been carefully defined. In order for the system to function without frequent interruptions, an assumption had to be accepted as a structural basis. The idea that certain scenarios were too improbable to justify further adaptations. Situations outside the norm, events considered extreme, conditions viewed as statistical exceptions. These possibilities were not ignored, they were discussed, molded, tested within controlled limits. After that, they were set aside, not through negligence, but for efficiency. Each added exception slowed down the system. Each new verification increased the complexity. Excessive complexity jeopardized the very purpose of automation. The choice was to keep the design clean. Direct flows, clear rules, predictable answers. The principle was simple. If the defined conditions were met, the system should act. There was confidence in the available data, trust in the models used, confidence that situations truly outside of the expected, they would become evident in time to allow for intervention. The idea that this will never happen. He didn't seem arrogant. It seemed pragmatic. Ultimately, every system needs limits, and every limit defines what will be ignored. At this point, the system is no longer just a technical support tool. He came to occupy the center of the decision-making process. And up until then, nothing indicated that this trust could be questioned. The limitation did not arise abruptly. She was there from the very beginning, embedded in the system design itself. It wasn't visible because it didn't manifest as a flaw. On the contrary, the system was working well, quickly, consistent. He relied exclusively on what he was able to recognize. Formalized rules, measurable signs, conditions that could be verified without ambiguity. Everything that didn't fit those parameters. He simply did not participate in the decision. Not through deliberate exclusion, but due to the impossibility of representation. The system did not interpret intentions. He did not evaluate incomplete contexts. He failed to recognize subtle changes that had not yet translated into clear data. He was simply checking states. If the conditions were right, he went ahead. If they weren't there, I blocked them. The human presence, envisioned as an element of balance, it was being pushed to the periphery of the process. More of an observer than a participant. More corrective than decisive. Over time, consistent efficiency created comfort. Predictable results reinforced confidence. Questioning automatic decisions has come to seem unnecessary. But this confidence concealed a critical issue. The system did not understand the real situation. He was operating on a scaled-down version of it. And this reduction, while necessary for operation, it also defined everything that the system would never be able to perceive. It's important to establish this precisely. The system did not have a technical failure. He executed exactly what he was designed to execute. Every rule was applied. Each condition was evaluated within the defined parameters. Each response occurred within the expected time frame. There was no operational error. No instructions were ignored. No component stopped working. The system's behavior was consistent with its design. Stable, predictable, consistent. The limitation was not in the execution, but in the way the world had been translated into rules and criteria. The system lacked the means to recognize situations outside the expected model. Not because it was defective, but that's because he was never given that role. He doesn't perceive silent ambiguities. It does not identify when a set of technically correct conditions. It ceases to be appropriate for the real context. Within your field of vision, everything was working as it should, and that's exactly why no intervention occurred at the critical moment. Confidence in automation was so solid. Questioning the result seemed unnecessary. The system delivered quick responses, clear and seemingly reliable. He decided faster than any human could decide, but he decided solely on the basis of, based on what he could see. The consequences did not come immediately or spectacularly. They formed gradually, in layers, almost imperceptible at first. First, small decisions began to be made without question. The system responded quickly, within the parameters. Therefore, their answers were accepted as correct. The absence of apparent problems reinforced confidence. Each successful execution made the next one more automatic. Human intervention was being postponed. Not through carelessness, but out of habit. Over time, side effects began to appear. Late adjustments, specific corrections, attempts to understand decisions that have already been made. When these consequences became clear, the process had already progressed too far to be easily reversed. The human reaction occurred after the action, after the decision, after the execution. The timeline kept repeating itself. The system detected, the system decided, the system was progressing. Human participation became reactive. Analyses emerged after the result. Revisions came when the impact was already present. The effect was not localized. It spread to larger structures. Processes had to be interrupted. Protocols were re-evaluated. Absolute trust began to be replaced by caution. The most uncomfortable aspect wasn't the final result. It was then that he realized nothing had deviated from the original plan. Everything went as expected. No technical glitches, without any apparent deviations. And yet, the set of these quick decisions. This produced consequences that demanded profound changes. It is not productive to look for a single culprit, not a single person, not a specific group, not even the system itself. What occurred was the predictable result of rational decisions. Decisions with clear objectives and within well-defined limits. Systems are created to reduce uncertainty, to bring predictability to complex environments, to alleviate the human burden in contexts where time is scarce. But every system has assumptions, silent ideas about how the world works, and most importantly, about how it doesn't work. When we delegate decisions, we also delegate those assumptions. That which was considered improbable, that which was discarded as an exception, that which never made it into the model. Speed offers real advantages. It reduces delays, eliminates hesitation. It guarantees consistent responses. But speed also eliminates pauses, and it is during this pause that human judgment usually emerges. That's where doubts arise. Which contexts are being reinterpreted? Which decisions can be reviewed? Systems don't understand meaning. They don't interpret intentions. They apply structures. They function very well within the scope of what they are able to represent. Apart from that, they operate in the dark. The learning process is not about rejecting automation. It's about understanding your limits. In recognizing that efficiency is not synonymous with understanding, and quick decisions are not, by definition, better decisions. We live surrounded by invisible decisions. Many of them are automatic, taken before we can consciously perceive them. Understanding how these systems think, it's more than just a technical exercise, it's a necessity of the modern world. Because whenever we give up the power to decide, something else takes on that role in our place. And that choice, even when it seems logical, even when it seems efficient, it is never neutral. She just follows the rules that someone decided to write.